Welcome to Cougan's Corner. Today I'm going to share with you 5 things I've learned at college so far this semester. Now, you don't have to worry. This is not going to be something that's going to hurt your brain. It's something that I think you will find interesting. Number 1, do you know why actors say break a leg? This term comes from the Roman time during the theater, because whenever they watched plays back then, instead of clapping their hands, they would stomp their feet whenever they liked a performance. And so now you begin to understand where this term came from. They wanted the actor to do such a good job that they would break a leg in the audience from doing their feet stomping so much. Also, just as a side note, another thing I learned about theater back in the past is that it got so violent at times that they didn't like what was going on. They would rush to the stage and they'd beat up the actors. And so they finally had to hire some Roman soldiers to stand up there with spears to keep the people from trying to run up on the stage. Pretty crazy stuff. Number 2, I'm sure you're all familiar with the phrase, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Well, Columbus and his men introduced several diseases to the Indians, including smallpox. But the Indians shared something with Columbus and his men as well, which is known as syphilis. Syphilis causes blotchy skin and also causes your hair to start to fall out. This is what caused a new trend in Europe to start of wearing white wigs and white powdered faces to cover all this up. However, it's been discovered that the powder that they used contained lead, so this was one bad trend for the people of Europe. Number 3, according to my history teacher, Napoleon didn't like his soldiers to defile their uniforms. But many of them, they would have snot and they just wipe it all over their uniform sleeve, and he thought that was disgusting. So they started making the uniforms covered with the little metal decorations that you see on dress coats. And they put a bunch of them on there so that way they wouldn't be as tempted to rub their nose against it. And so it's this little bit of history is why we still have those useless decorations that you find on suit jackets today. Number 4, once again, according to my history teacher, there was a king who had an unsightly large mole on his neck, and he had his servant make a kind of scarf to cover up this big mole, which ended up being a tie. That became the new trend because if the king wore a tie, then everyone should wear a tie. Number 5, finally, the last interesting thing I learned comes from my developmental psychology class. You can test this out on yourself if you have the following information. If you measure the height of a toddler at the age of 2 years old, between 2.5 years old, and you double that number, it will tell you approximately how tall that child will be. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions to this, but this works on most people most of the time. Hope you've enjoyed these 5 things that I discovered or learned this semester. I thought they were quite interesting, and maybe you can pass them on to someone else. If you like this channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.